Hi everyone, this week I thought I would have a look at some work in progress that I've found in my portfolio. I'm going to look at a range of subjects and I'm going to try to do the absolute minimum I can on each one to bring them to what I consider to be finished. So here's the first example. This is obviously 3 cattle, and I think this has sat in my portfolio for around about 14 years or so, possibly a little longer. This is conventional acrylic, and I'm really quite happy with the sense of movement and liveliness and the looseness of line I've got with these animals. But for whatever reason, I just moved on and did other paintings. So my plan for this one is to keep pretty much everything nice and raw. But as I said, this is conventional acrylic, and so that's totally waterproof. So my plan is to come in with watercolor marker on top where I feel it's necessary, to just kind of add a little definition or a little punch here and there. So the first thing I want to address is this background animal. And I personally really like the loose depiction of it, but the only bit I don't like is this kind of splodge of paint which is going horizontally. And I think I'm not quite sure where that bit came from, but this bit is kind of meant to be the tail sticking out from behind the rear end of the animal. So just going to start off with this pale blue. As I said, watercolor marker. This one's a mid blue, Winsor and Newton, and we'll just see what this looks like. Let's go to the brush tip, I think, actually. Maybe not. Yeah, we'll try the brush tip and just put a little bit of a line in there. That's perhaps a little dark, but the idea of putting the extra line in is just to soften, not soften, what am I talking about? It's just to put the end of that tail in behind the rest of the animal. So what I'm going to do is just grab a flat brush here and get it a little bit wet. And as I said, that blue's a little dark, I think. So because the acrylic's waterproof, I can soften the watercolor on top, and I don't have to worry about the paint going anywhere. So I'm not quite sure that's worked as well as I'd hoped, but we'll press on for the moment. So let's address the right hand animal. Now, on the whole, I'm pretty happy with this lady, but I just want to kind of bring these two animals more into the foreground than this third background one. So I'll kind of mimic some of the lines in part that I've already established with the acrylic paint. So I definitely don't want to, copy them exactly, because there's no point in from my perspective, there's no point in kind of just going over what I've done. I want to try and enhance what I've done and leave exposed some of the work that I like. So if I just stand back a minute, I think that's working quite well. I quite like the dark blue on top of the paler blue. I think that's quite an interesting effect for line work. Now notice this animal doesn't even have a foot, but in the artistic world, we can do what we like. So I'm trying to be mindful to keep the new marks that I put down fairly lively. I want to keep this sort of freshness that you get with an initial sketch. So I don't think I'm going to do too much more on that animal. I'm sort of tempted to put a darker line of blue down there, but I don't think I want to, because it's adding to the sense of depth by keeping this end paler. So we'll move over to the left-hand side and do something similar. So this is actually a brand new technique for me. I have painted, many times in acrylic, and then with put in some details on top of a near finished painting with the watercolor marker. But I've never actually done this where I've taken an acrylic drawing and then just sort of selectively enhanced little bits with the watercolor marker. And I have to say, it's something I'm really enjoying. It's I don't know, I think it has sort of a unique appearance, and it's a very sort of free and expressive way of working. So that's pretty cool. Happy to have discovered it by chance. Okay, well, we'll leave that one there for the moment. And I've actually got two others which were created, same subject matter, created around about the same time. So here's another one. So obviously very similar theme. Now with this one, we've got two animals in the foreground. All three animals are obviously side view. And I've got this almost ghost-like entity in the background. So at the moment, what I'm thinking is, what's popping into my head is I've got these sort of orangey browns, or especially with this lighter one in the foreground animals. So I'm thinking I'm going to go round again with the blue. And I'm tempted to sort of enhance the outline of the ghost animal in orange, which will sort of pop against the pale blue of the sky. So Spectrum Noir marker now, and this color is Sunset. So let's give that a go. Brush tip again as opposed to the fine liner. So I'm not too sure how I feel about that, but we'll go with it. So the legs of the animal behind are kind of just peeking through here. So yeah, as mentioned, not so sure about the orange, but there's so little of it. I think it's okay. So let's come back in with our mid blue and take a fairly carefree approach without overthinking things too much, and just sort of enhance little bits of the underlying line work that I've got. Now there's a hint of an eye here. I don't know if you noticed, but in the previous painting I don't think I included any eyes at all, and I think we'll stick with that omission for the moment. And let's move over to the other animal then. I quite like the swish of the tail here, so we'll add to that a bit. So I feel that the two main animals, left and right, they're sort of bringing them, it's making them pop. I quite like the sort of sense of life it's adding. I'm just pondering what to do with this horizon line. So because I'm not sure, for the moment, I'm going to leave that. I'll go to number 3. We do have some different subjects coming along in just a moment. But here's another one. Got the cattle moving towards us. And again, I think I'm going to go with the same blue. So we're sort of staying consistent. Oh, that was a bit dodgy, that line. Staying consistent with, the theme across this little trio of paintings. And blue is very much a dominant colour in my work anyway. I was tempted to add a few lines on the tail there, but again, I'm really enjoying making the lines bolder with a watercolor marker at the front, for the most part, at the front end of the animal, and then just leaving the bits going off into the distance a little less well defined. I mean, there are exceptions. I've put, lines on the rear legs there, but okay, let's see what else we've got to take a look at then. Well, this little cartoon was created for a video some months ago. And it was just really created just to kind of help tell a little story. I quite like the sketch of the guy, and I don't need to, when I scan it in a bit perhaps, I don't need to include the word Monday up there on the right hand side. So for this guy, I'm just going to come in with a little bit of yellow. This is my little Inktense travel kit, and I've got a water brush here. And let's imagine he's lit from the left hand side. So we'll put a little bit of that yellow on all of the exposed skin that's showing. And I'm mixing in a little bit of orange with that, keeping the paint fairly fluid. That's my next tone. I'm sort of making him look a little bit ill perhaps at the moment, which wasn't really the intention, but we'll grab some yellow ochre and put some of that in on the right hand side of the exposed skin, and then perhaps get a little bit of red in there. Put a little bit of red in his cheeks, certainly adding to the emotion of his face by doing that. Now I may add some darker shadows in a bit, but before we get to that, let's grab some ocean blue, which is mixed in with a bit of the colour I had left on the palette. Put a light wash of that onto his trousers. Oh, I should have mentioned that this is Sharpie pen, the line drawing. So we'll assume his jacket would be the same colour as his trousers, and perhaps he's wearing a white shirt if he's got an office job. But nevertheless, we can still add just a little bit of tone. So I'm really just watering down almost as much as I can. Oh, that's perhaps too much. That's just pure water. let's change the blue a little bit. We'll go to navy. Well, not navy, ultramarine blue, I should say. And we'll just put a few hints of shadow there. And then he's perhaps wearing quite dark shoes. Oh, very dark shoes as it's turned out. And we'll grab a bit of raw umber and mix that in with some of the red that is on the palette. So his hair's got a bit of colour now. And what colour phone cover do you think this chap would have? Perhaps a red one. But we won't go too heavy on the red. So that's brought that little guy to life a little bit more than before. So that's worked out okay. And then another cartoon or illustration, whatever you want to call it, from that same little series was this one, which I quite like. So we'll do a similar treatment, but obviously there's a little bit more to do with this one. So I've still got some of the yellow mixed in with some of the orange. So if these people are under interior lights, then their skin's going to perhaps look a little more yellow than the other chap who was perhaps outdoors. So that's okay so far. And then perhaps the couch they're on is a green. So being careful not to get any of that on the cat or indeed the people. And then perhaps these people are into their complementary colours for their interior design. So perhaps went a little bit strong on the red there, but we've committed ourselves now, so we'll keep going. And I've just realised I've missed a little area which should have been green, I think. Yeah, I think I intended that little bit to be green. And then I'm not saying it's the same chap from the previous... Oh, that's his sock. That's what that was. I hadn't twigged what that was. Okay, well, I've committed now, but I'll come back and modify those socks in a moment. So, so the blue I intended to put on his trousers has also turned out a little more turquoise. So it's either it's a different guy or the guy's changed. So let's go to some of the orange and we'll give him a striped shirt. And am I going to be going in too early? No, managed to get away with that. I'll give him some stripy socks, and that offsets the green that I put down there by accident. And then just to contrast things really with the rest of the clothing, the intention there was to put down some purple dots. I'm not sure I like the look of that though, so we'll commit to a purple top. And the idea is, as well as his legs, she's got a book on her lap. So that's not too bad. That's that colour. And I'm just pondering what to do with the lady's hair. I quite like leaving the guy's hair white. Guess I could go pure yellow. Make her blonde. And then as I'm doing this, I'm realising that might work quite well because I could make her headband perhaps a bright red, just to give a little pop of colour. To proceedings. There we go, so there's another one brought to life. I could have done with a bit more yellow there, couldn't I? Just in there. There we go. So, I'm going to leave the book on the ground, the book on her lap. Not that you can see much of that, and the cat completely white. And again, I think that's brought that one to life quite well. I mean, I didn't mind the black and white versions of those two. I think I've got 3 others in this series, but for now we'll stop there.